Hi, my name is Jake McMahon. I'm going to talk a little bit about wetland ecology. So when a lot of people think of wetlands, it's often portrayed as buggy, muddy, smelly. Well, not wrong, wetlands are definitely all those things, but they also have a very beautiful aspect to them that a lot of people don't really know, and I'm going to talk a little bit about them today. Now, wetlands are defined as an area of land that is kind of transitioning from terrestrial to aquatic environments. So the animals and plants in these areas are very well adapted to flooding because there's going to be lots of water there. And so these trees and animals are very well adapted to those types of conditions. So over half of our critically endangered species on our list here in America are reliant on the wetlands at some point of their lives, and over 1/3 of them are solely reliant on the wetlands for their entire lives. So they're very important for these animals. It's also a very critically important environment for a lot of migratory birds. A lot of birds either start or make their homes either in the winter or summer, or will stop here during their migration. So it's a great place for food and shelter. So it's a really good place for a lot of animals. It's also important for people. So a lot of people don't realize what wetlands do for them. So living here in Florida along the coast, wetlands provide a huge function. So they allow us to actually live in these areas. So when big storms come through, like hurricanes, when they're coming through, the wetlands are the ones that are slowing the storms down. They're the ones that act as a buffer, reduces land erosion. So when big waves come through, the wetlands are kind of keeping the sediment in the soil in place. They also recharge our aquifers and clean our water for us. It's a natural cleaning system. So as the water is flowing through the wetlands, the plants and the animals are actually cleaning the water. So it is nature virtually cleaning itself. Also, wetlands provide a commercial use, so a lot of commercial fish, crustaceans, and mollusks make their homes in wetlands. So they are very important for us, not only for our homes, but also commercially, so people can make money off of these areas. So they do need to be protected, and they do need to be preserved. Now here in Florida we have lots of different types of wetlands. We have our mangroves, we have the Everglades, but one of the more important ones that I honestly grew up in is our swamps. So, and a very important tree in our swamps are cypress trees. Cypress trees do provide a very unique environment just for how they grow. When cypress trees grow, the water that kind of develops around the trees becomes very acidic. So the trees make the water a little bit more acidic, and over time that erodes the limestone underneath the trees. And so it honestly makes a bowl for the trees to grow in. So they kind of make their own wetland environment, and the areas that the bowls are in can be defined by the trees themselves. So cypress trees are very compact growers, and in a distance it almost looks like a dome, so we call them cypress domes, which is really cool. Also, how they grow with their root system also helps them protect themselves against storms. So the way cypress trees' root systems are, the roots shoot out way far beyond the tree itself, and then they poke above the ground, and that's where you get your cypress knees. The roots interlock with each other, and so when a big storm does come through, the wind's not going to knock down the trees. They do hold themselves in place.
I have a question. What animals make their homes in cypress trees?
It's a good question. So lots of animals are very reliant on cypress trees. So if you can hear now, we actually have lots of birds. So like I said before, wetlands do provide a nice home for a lot of birds. Each layer of a cypress tree, you will find different types of birds. They make different niches for the animals. So up above, where there's lots of branches and leaves and bugs and food available, there's going to be lots of little songbirds making their nests, foraging for food, all different kinds of stuff like that. You actually can hear one right now. Also, you're going to find lots of your birds of prey, so your owls and your hawks and your eagles, because that's where the songbirds are, and that's what they like to eat. Kind of in the middle of on the trunk area, you're going to find a lot of woodpeckers. They're going to be looking for food there. They're going to be making their homes out of your dead cypress trees. They make a really good home. And then kind of below in the water, they're going to find lots of egrets and herons, a lot of those water wading birds, because they're going to be looking for food. And so that's just birds. You also can find a lot of reptiles, so alligators and snakes, frogs, salamanders, amphiumas, otters, raccoons, possums, all these animals. And that's just the ones that are just off the top of my head. So a lot of animals are critically dependent on these types of environments. And not just animals, but also a lot of different types of plants. Cypress trees allow a lot of plants to grow. So a lot of rare orchids, so a lot of grow here. The epiphytes, or your air plants, are reliant on them. a lot of lichens and mosses. All these different types of trees are the ones that grow on top of a cypress tree. They're not parasitic, they just kind of latch onto them. So they're just kind of, it's like a mutualistic relationship that the cypress trees provide for these plants. You also can find lots of, you can find holly trees, you could find oaks, depending on the level, the water level. Because Florida is a very flat area, how far you are above ocean is going to determine what type of plant. So within just a foot difference, you're going to have a completely different environment, which is really cool here in Florida. Now, like I said, these areas really do need to be protected because they are really important, not only for the animals, but also for us. So one way I always like to encourage people is let nature do the talking. Go out, go to a state park, go to a natural preserve where you can find wetlands, because these areas are beautiful. You can see so many animals. I mean, we're just barely even in the wetlands, and we could probably find all different types of birds and bugs and stuff like that. And by visiting these areas, they really can inspire conservation action. It really inspires people to want to get out there and protect these areas, because then they can see their value, not only their economic value, but also just their value of just being there and being beautiful. So I definitely recommend it.
How do invasive species affect the actual health of a biodome or cypress dome?
So invasive species, they definitely do affect any type of environment they come in, especially if they become invasive. So one of the big ones we have here in Florida are our Malucas, or the paper trees. So it was brought in a long time ago to dry up the wetlands, and they did their job really, really well, and it really did mess up our environments here in Florida. So now they're spending millions of dollars to remove the Malucas trees. So they do cause a lot of issues. So and we have the wild hogs. They root up the plants. There is a type of lizard that the brown anole. It provides more competition, and a lot of time the invasive species that come in, they're more opportunistic. They're not very picky, and they're able to survive and outcompete the native ones that are a little bit more specific in their niches. So the invasive species, what they come to, they just kind of dominate, and they take over what's naturally supposed to be here. So they can be a really big issue, and if they're not controlled or taken care of quick enough, they can honestly destroy a natural environment.
Are there poisonous snakes in the swamp?
There's no such thing as a poisonous snake, so don't let anyone convince you of that. So snakes are venomous, and very few snake species are actually venomous. There's only like maybe 5 or 6 species in America that are considered venomous. All the rest are mostly constrictors, so they just will constrict their prey, or they're egg eaters. So, but yeah, poison is something you eat, venom is something that gets injected. So, but there's no such thing as a poisonous snake.
Are there any venomous snakes?
Yeah, so there are venomous snakes here. In Florida, we have the water moccasin, which can be found very commonly in wetland environments because they like the water, they eat fish. You can find diamondback rattlesnakes, pygmy rattlesnakes, copperheads, and the coral snake. All these animals, they give warning. So they don't want to bite you, they don't like to bite you, they'd much rather save that venom for something else. They use it to catch their food. And literally all these animals do give warnings. Rattlesnakes rattle, that's their way of saying, stay away from me, I'm over here. The water moccasins, they have their white mouth that they will sit open to kind of let you know. They also release a musk to let you know that their coral snakes are bright colors. They have the bright reds and yellows and oranges to let you know, I'm venomous, leave me alone. Copperheads are a little bit more elusive. They like to but they stay buried underneath a lot of the brushes, so as long as you're not like going crazy, you stomping through the woods, you don't have to worry about those snakes too much. And honestly, there's a lot more snakes out there than people seem to honestly realize, and they're not going to bother you. You're much bigger than these animals. You're not their food. They don't think you're food. They think you're a giant thing that's going to try to eat them, so they'd much rather just run away from you every single time. So snakes are a non-issue, honestly, as long as you're not trying to mess with one. Nature's best observed from a distance. Awesome. Well, so I hope I got to teach you a little bit about wetlands and some really cool stuff. I hope I brought up a lot of good topics, and to hear from y'all soon.
Thank you. That was very informative.